2, 3, 4.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. My name is Christoph Zürn, and this is the podcast for people with a musical heart and a wicked job. We're looking for stories, insights and tools from the big world of music to inspire leaders and followers to listen, tune, play, and perform in whatever field you're operating. Today we're in Hawaii. We speak with Dagan Bernstein, a teacher and musician passionate about designing and leading innovative educational experiences. Dagan is currently serving as Capstone Coordinator at an independent K-12 international boarding school in Hawaii with additional expertise in mathematics, music, and digital media instructions. We speak about collaboration in the classroom and how this might be an inspiration for business people. And we talk intensively about the ukulele, how he is using this in teaching, some historical background, and we hear him play a tenor ukulele during the conversation, like he would do on the farmer's market in the weekend. So let's get into it. Hello, Dagan. Hello, and welcome to the Power of Music Thinking.
Aloha, Christoph. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, aloha. Very nice. So we're in Hawaii. You're in Hawaii and I'm in the Netherlands. So great to talk to you. And we spoke in real life 2 months ago. So this was awesome. So so this is already a friendship about music thinking and the ukulele. And that's what we will talk today. But I start with my favorite question I ask my guests, and it's like, what's your first sonic experience or album or performance that had an impact on you?
Yeah, I love this question, and I do love your podcast, and it's such a great way to kind of a window into a person. But for me, when I think about my first sonic experience, I was kind of going back in my life and thinking about different either concerts or, hearing albums for the first time. And I just kept going back further and further and further to my childhood. And there's one that really sticks out for me. And it was, I probably was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And my dad is a huge blues and jazz music fan. And when I was a kid, he had a record player and he had like a separate room that was kind of his room where he had his record player. And at night he would, relax after dinner and listen to records. And there's an album by, it's a live B.B. King record, live at the Regal Theater. Mm-hmm. And I remember kind of hearing some music and people talking and almost like a nightclub sound coming out of this room, because if you listen to the album, it's like it's real live. It's like in the nightclub. And I just remember listening to this music coming out of this room and actually thinking that behind this door was like an actual nightclub, or like that there was some secret room behind this door and there was people talking and chattering and guitar. And, it's such like a distinct musical experience from my childhood of when I actually, if you can imagine kind of behind this door, like if you just are hearing it without seeing it, you would think that there's an actual like musical concert happening in this room. And so every time I listen to that album, which is a classic blues album, I am immediately transported back to this like time when I must have been 6 or 7 or 8 years old at the time.
Very nice. Also, the imagination that you just mentioned. So something, and if the door opens, so a whole new world would open for you. But also interesting for audio, because you already listen to the world without seeing it. So that's like a preview, funny preview, pre-audio, we should say.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I like it. Do you know what songs were on that blues album?
Um, not off the top of my head. I mean, it's a pretty classic BB King record, a mix of, blues standards and some of his,
Yeah.
well-known repertoire. But it's just the like that live energy of like music happening with people, and you can almost hear like you can hear the reaction of the audience when BB King really hits a guitar note or the energy shifts, and just that kind of interaction between the music and the audience and the people there who are experiencing the music is real distinct for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really an experience. So you really feel something about everything. So it doesn't matter how it's called.
Yeah.
Thanks again. But maybe just also start with who are you and what do you do for a living? So that the listener has an idea, and then we will dive into the big world of a small instrument.
Yeah. Well, my name's Dagan Bernstein, and I'm an educator based out here in Hawaii and on Hawaii Island. And I work at an independent school here. It's a K through 12 school, meaning kindergarten through 12th grade. And I'm specifically, we have two campuses, but I'm at the campus that is kindergarten through 8th grade. So, 5, 6 years old, all the way up to 13 or 14 years old. And I'm the coordinator of our Capstone program. And what Capstone is a year-long project that independent project that every student does at this school in 5th and 8th grade. And so we have about 20 5th graders, which would be about 10 or 11 years old. I don't know how that equates to the European school system, and about 40 8th graders, which are about 13 and 14 years old. So there's 60 students total, and I'm the coordinator of this program, and I work with 4 other teachers who are capstone advisors for the students. And I kind of just oversee the program, kind of collaborate with the teachers to design the structure of the projects and to guide the students through the project experience, and then manage the end of year kind of presentation that all the students do to our community on their project experience and their final product that they create in this project. So it's a really amazing like education and learning program that our school has, and I feel really blessed to be in this position to help support the students and the work they create. This is my second year in this position, and previous to this, I've also been a mathematics teacher. I was also a digital media teacher and music technology teacher, as well as I was the director of our ukulele ensemble for middle school as well for a number of years. And I did that for over 10 years before I became a full-time educator, because my kind of foot into the education world was through music. I was a music performer, and I played in different groups as an ukulele player here in Hawaii Island, and in a few different genres of music. And that was kind of my life through my kind of mid 20s to my late 20s. And then it was really about 10 years ago that I went full time into education.
Great.
Yeah.
So there's a music parallel and a professional parallel, and as we know in that podcast, they're intertwined. And sometimes you get hints from the other side when you're doing and when you're on one side. Interesting. Let's maybe first talk about the capstone and push the ukulele a little bit to later. So these kids are in a project for 1 year. What kind of projects are they?
Well, they're pretty varied. We do this at the end of the way the school system is structured here in America is you have one division we call elementary school, that's kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we have a middle school division, which is 6th through 8th grade. And that might vary a little by school, but in general, you have the 6th through 8th grade, and then there's high school, which is 9th through 12th grade. And so the way the program's designed is each student, they design a project that is of their own choosing that connects with our school. We have a sustainability model, which we call Malama Kaiaulu, which in Hawaiian, loosely translates to caring for your community. And this is a school-wide sustainability model that our school has aligned itself with. And each project does have to connect with this Malama Kaiaulu model. So the student is kind of tasked with combining an interest or an idea or a deep essential question with a community need, and then they design a product or an experience to address this community need.
Oh, no.
So the projects are really varied. They're as different as each student. Some could.
I like that part. This Malama Kaiaulu, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Kaiaulu. Yeah, Kaiaulu, Kaiaulu.
And because it starts with empathy, so that's interesting. So that's really something. Okay, these kids are, let's say, in the middle of something, because if you're 10 to 14 years, so the puberty starts, and I can imagine there's a lot going on in school. And interesting that they should focus on empathy, on a principle. And is it only for your school, or is it because you say it's a Hawaiian principle? Are there more examples of that principle over Hawaii?
Of Malama Kaiaulu? Yeah. This is it's not a term that's specific to our school. There are other, schools or even other institutions that kind of use this. It's it's a mindset. It's a framework. It's a way of seeing the world that is real connected. It's connected to just the kind of the Hawaiian lens of being, where community is very important. The people's relationship to the land and to other people and to our environment is very essential to just the Hawaiian mindset. And as a school, we worked with our community outside of the school and with community members over a couple of years to create this sustainability model. And the Capstone program actually was designed in parallel. But one of the things that myself and the coordinator at the high school, along with our administrators and leadership, kind of did, and really all our stakeholders together, we really wanted to bring these two things together, the independent project and the sustainability model, as a way to, provide students the opportunity to connect with learning outside of just the textbook or outside of just math content or social studies content, but to do something that's kind of beyond those typical, silos that you find in education.
Nice. And they're pretty young. So it's really challenging to working on 1 year on one project. And so I can imagine there are a lot of questions or ups and downs or misunderstandings or changes.
Oh, definitely. And we try and scaffold the program for grades. They're going to do 3 projects in 5th grade and 8th grade, and then their final project at 12th grade at the end of high school. And, we have to be really intentional about that progression because, as we know, even as adults, when we initiate a project, that it takes many twists and turns. It evolves, it changes, things work, things don't work. And so there's lots of intentional design about making sure that students understand that, these are skills, these are lifelong skills. These are skills that we want them to have as they leave school and enter the workforce or enter the university or enter their whatever the next phase in their life is. Even when they go from fifth grade maybe into eighth grade, or as they transition through school, we really want them to be reflective on what they're doing, what didn't work, maybe some failures they had, and that's where the learning happens. That's where students are able to connect with their individual skills, areas of growth, and not just focus on, did the actual product get made? Sometimes it doesn't get made, but that's okay if they're doing, they're going through a process of reflection and, self-reflecting on their skill development, then it's successful in our minds.
Yeah, cool. And when I listen to you like this from what you do with your students, and their iterations, 1 year iterations, or even more iterations in a project part. So that's so modern. So yeah, companies also should work like in from year to year and make iterations and do a start. And I heard tomorrow is the start of the new grade. So everybody is coming in and then trying to find their place. So I'm just thinking this would be maybe also beneficial for the business world to always get a reset after the holiday break and just to get into it. And also things like empathy, trying to understand the context and the environment of others and also from yourself. And also I also hear a little bit purpose through. So why are we doing this? Who are we? Who am I? And who are we together? So that's, I think we could learn a lot from that process.
Yeah, you definitely identified two important parts of it. The empathy piece is very important. That's kind of what we start with. And I'm actually, spent the last week kind of planning and co-creating with my team about how do we get students to engage with an empathy lens, and how do we get them to design a project with purpose. And, it's hard with young people. Some, it comes very naturally. Some come in with a very clear passion and focus. And others, it can take a little bit of time to pull out what it is that maybe really gets them interested and motivated in the project. But I've found that when you give students the space and the time, and you build the trust with them to take risks and be curious and to imagine, you mentioned imagination earlier, that students actually inside, I do believe that inside each young person is an idea. It's just my job to kind of create space to bring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And but again, it's for me also the parallel to the business world, because sometimes companies, they don't even have a purpose, or they don't even have it written down. And some they already have, and they do it, and it's easy. And sometimes people say, "Oh yeah, now we should do that purpose thing, otherwise people won't buy from us." So I can imagine that I hear so many parallels. If you take, let's say, your the teaching world and the school world as let's say analogy to the business world, it also works. How much is there, let's say, listening involved? Because to try to understand others. So if I imagine a kid between 10 and 14, they have to listen to the teacher, but that's their job because they're in school. But they might also listen to others. So how is listening involved, and how do they practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. We kind of call this beginning part of the project, we actually call it look, listen, and learn. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the initial framing we use. And this kind of a beginning, birth, if you will, of the project idea. it always evolves because we're always trying new things from year to year. But when we think of listening, it's almost like one part of having all your senses activated. And that's why, the look, listen, and learn is the kind of the framing we've used. But we do bring in community members to come into the school and share different projects that are working on. So we do ask we ask, the students to observe and listen to what people are sharing. We go out into the community, and actually we have an activity where they walk through the park, and we have something in Hawaii called Kilo, which means Kilo, Kilo. And it's actually a practice of observation. And it's a great way to kind of tune the students' senses into seeing and hearing and feeling and smelling all the elements around you. What do you see? What do you notice? It's like a noticing exercise. So we'll take them through the park, and we might do this in a couple phases where we maybe have them just focus on the environment, because we want them to just kind of attune themselves to maybe the wind or a certain type of tree, or what's the sound of the wind blowing through a certain tree. Oh. Can you tell there's different types of trees by the way the wind's blowing through the trees? And then we'll kind of take that experience, and then we'll take it to another level, and we'll have them walk around the park and ask them to identify things that required collaboration or community engagement. And they might come back and say, well, I noticed this bench. I'm sure, someone had to build it, or I noticed this area, the weeds were cleared out. So maybe they have like a volunteer group that comes on the weekend to clear it out, or so on and so forth. So we use this practice of noticing, Kilo, this, kind of noticing observation, to then reattune themselves to now look at things in their community, so they can start to engage with being, empathetic and understanding that the world around them involves people designing, creating, collaborating, and in doing things. And then hopefully that kind of makes them feel a sense of, both responsibility and maybe power or motivation to, hey, I can do something, or maybe I want to build a bench at the park near my neighborhood, and that's my project, or maybe I want to, whatever the project might be. So that Kilo, that practice of noticing, is a real key part that we have the students go through.
I like it very much because it's also multisensory. So when I talk about listening, I don't mean only listening. It's all about all the senses, using observation, trying to understand. Sometimes I have this in workshops when people ask me something and a question that I don't know, then I always fall back on my observation skills. And sometimes I'm just sharing my observation. So people ask me something, and I say, what I observed. And then you share it with them, and they say, oh, hang on, I didn't see it from this way. So I love very much that multisensory, because when you close your eyes, you only hear of you. And when you're outside, you smell, you feel, but you don't talk about all these different, it's one big experience that connects you with the outside world. And we learned already two new words. So Malama Kaiaulu and Kilo. So, wow. Yeah. Thank you for this. Is there more about this? So do you also teach something Hawaiian? Because your students are, where do they come from?
I mean, our students, they come from a lot of different places.
But are they all Hawaiian, or?
No, not in the sense of like, ethnically Hawaiian or of Hawaiian ancestry, right? Which is always one, I think, confusion, because Hawaii is a state. And so, you wouldn't say someone who is from the state of Hawaii as being Hawaiian, because there's also there's people who are, ethnically Hawaiian, of Hawaiian blood.
Yeah.
So, for example, like I'm not Hawaiian, right? But I grew up here in Hawaii. And so, these concepts and these ideas are part of the host culture here, and part of the people of Hawaii. And it's through the sharing of this knowledge, and this, we call it Ike, is kind of knowledge here in Hawaii. And I am just a recipient of this knowledge through how it's been shared and given to me. And that's kind of, not to go too off topic here, but I think it's important to unpack this when we talk about these things, because I want to make sure that I acknowledge that it's through the aloha, it's through that free giving that the people of Hawaii have around sharing their knowledge, their experience, their mindset, that I've been able to understand how to share this with my own students. Yeah. Because there's these concepts are very deep and very intertwined with the way of life of the Hawaiian people. Mm-hmm. And through growing up here, and through learning about these different ways, the act of kilo, those types of experiences have been shared with me, and have allowed me to share those with my students, who come from a wide variety of backgrounds. I mean, you have students of European ancestry, of mixed Hawaiian, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino. I mean, Hawaii is a very multicultural society. And, our school is unique in that it's an independent school, which, is very different than the European system, where also known as private schools. Like, you have the public school system, mm-hmm. and our school, families pay. And in our case, they pay a decent amount of money to send their child to a school, mm-hmm. That, as we excel in academics, and we have, deep learning experiences, and deep programs like the Capstone program that we offer families. So our student body is a little bit not representative of maybe most public school populations by demographic, because of the kind of the socioeconomic differences. But part of our school's mission is to honor the traditions of Hawaii, and through a lot of place-based learning and off-campus experiences and collaborations we have with community members in our community, we've been able to kind of build up a program that has, over the years, I feel, has been much more rooted in place, people, and the culture of Hawaii here.
So it sounds like everything is really connected. And if people send out their kids to Hawaii, maybe they do this with a purpose to understand on one side things that you learn for life, also business things. But on the other hand, don't forget that we only have one planet, and that we are connected also to nature, and like food and everything. Sounds very good.
Yeah.
Would people expect when they send their kids to Hawaii that they also learn a Hawaiian instrument?
I would hope so. That was part of why I had the ukulele ensemble group that I directed, and now our music teacher now does that. And we can
tell
discuss
us more about this, because ukulele, when you see some people picking up the ukulele, it's always a collaborative something. So people sing together with others. So that's a very very social instrument on that part. On the other hand, do you know the ukulele ensemble of ukulele orchestra of Great Britain? So I saw them in concert once, 8 people on stage. It's hilarious. It's nice. Yes. It's funny. It's entertaining. So tell us a little bit more how the ukulele. What did you do, and how are you doing this now?
Yeah, the ukulele has a obviously a very special place here in Hawaii, and in our schools, it's kind of the like instrument you learn, and that's how I first learned the ukulele in third grade with my classroom teacher in third grade. Like we'd have music class, and she would get out the ukuleles, and we would learn the basic chords, and that was pretty common across most schools in Hawaii.
Okay, so the whole class, let's say 20 or 30 kids, and grade 3, hang on, then you're 7 or 8 or something like this?
Probably about 8 years old is when I first learned, and she taught us just simple chords, C, F, and G, and we would, just sing songs together, and that was kind of how I first learned, and like I said, a lot of schools do this, or through middle school. Ukulele is very common in schools. And so how I got involved with teaching the ukulele was actually when I was, this was about 15 years ago now, maybe even more. Now, about 15 years ago, I was, working as a ukulele performer, and was, playing in different bands and whatnot. And the music teacher at the school heard about me, and she needed some help with the ukulele program, and just invited me to help, teach kids the ukulele. And, I don't have a formal musical background. I just learned kind of in the typical Hawaiian style, where it's informal learning. You learn by doing, you learn from, sitting in with other players. And when we learned in school, it was just learning chords and by watching your friends, or you'd learn during recess and whatnot. So like, I don't have formal music training, but that was what I think really helped me, thrive in this position. Was I just approached it with, if you gave me, we had about 20 kids, they all had ukulele, and I was free to just create, arrangements kind of from scratch for these students to play. And I just used my own kind of musical imagination and creativity to come up with different arrangements. I would take just songs, whether they were pop songs or Hawaiian and local songs, and kind of arrange them. And as I started doing this over the years, I started to, understand more about like arranging and, melody and counter melody and rhythm, and the relationship between those. And I was also collaborating with teachers from other schools who had formal music training, who could, I had to learn how to like read music. And I just remember they were so patient with me, teaching me like how to read the staff and understanding how to compose counter melodies. And
nice.
I started to like really over the years kind of come up with my own, style, I guess. And, we did shows, we had students playing Beatles songs, Beach Boys songs.
Wow. And how many students were they? So do I have to think on 2 or 3 or 20 or 30?
No, my ensemble had about 20 to 30.
Wow.
And
we have recordings of them.
There are on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. We have to put them in the show notes, because I really think about it when you work with in business, in workshops. So sometimes I use the ukulele just to connect people, and that in the book I write about 3 different instruments that I think that's for a follower leadership, let's say, exercise for any leader to at least learn one instrument. It doesn't matter what, and it doesn't matter how good he is, but it's good that you experience that not everything that you say as a manager is just done that way. It needs some work. And on the other hand, it's also a listening school, listening to others and getting better and maybe showing others and helping them. And on the other hand, getting help by others. And at the very end, you're doing it together. So there is no finger pointing. So I love the ukulele in that part. So I'm very much interested how you do this with the 20 kids playing together, and even the tuning sounds for me very, very interesting part in the beginning to tune 20 ukuleles.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say that you can also imagine there is another school that is we would partner with, who had about 75 students in their ukulele ensemble. Ooh. And we would myself and the other directors would come up with music, and we'd make the arrangements, and we would independently teach our ensembles the music. And then like a couple of weeks before the concert, we would get together for rehearsals, and we would bring the two groups together. So you had over 100 kids on stage playing together after learning the music independently. And then we would have to kind of meet somewhere, because maybe we would come together and we would count it off, and we'd be like, oh, you're playing this many beats per minute. And we're playing, oh wait, you played a C minor there? Oh, we actually stayed on a C major. And you'd have to recalibrate it. The students were so patient with us, as we would have to okay, on measure 47, we won't, whatever, do that. But you mentioned the tuning, because it's this amazing experience of talk about making beautiful music out of chaos. Because when you start the experience, it really does feel like chaos. You have all these ukulele, and some they won't stay in tune, or the kids don't know how to tune them, or they start strumming and they can't play in rhythm, or you have a picking pattern that is the melody, or you come up with different transitions. And like I said, I am not a trained composer. I'm not formally trained in music. So I would sometimes have to hum things, or I would have to write it out, try and come up with ways to using a tablature notation, or because I didn't have the ability to just tell the students it's a quarter note, 16th note. I don't understand music that way. So, and
maybe they as well. They
as well, right? Because I didn't.
So I think they just understand because you hum for them. And by the way,
yes,
professional musicians do the same. If I have to play something, I first go and then you play it on the instrument. So that's listening and tuning.
Exactly.
Cool.
And then over time, you would kind of get to this point where the song starts to emerge out of this seeming chaos, and the kids, they start to feel it, and they start to get it, and they feel the energy of them all contributing to this song and to this sound, this one sound, because that's the goal, is to make it sound like one sound. And so it's almost like molding a piece of clay or like a sculpture. And then once you have it, you have this thing, and you can play it at the assembly or for other students. Or then, of course, we would have a big concert in our theater at school, where you would have an audience of 400 people, and we would play it. And it was just such an exciting experience to just co-create with the students. And it really it was a great entry for me into education, because that was kind of my first experience with teaching and being in the classroom. And it really made me not engage in this kind of hierarchy of I'm the teacher and I'm way up here and you're the student and you have to listen to me. It was almost like I would sometimes co-create with the students and say, do you like that section there? Or should we stop on the C? Or what doesn't sound right? And we would kind of work together and they had some agency and some input into what we would actually end up creating. And it really made me understand early on that learning can be done together with the students, that it's not just me who knows everything and who, is up there on the conductor's stand, with the chalkboard saying, play a quarter note or repeat after me. It was like a little bit more, there was more of a relationship and a co-creation with the students.
Yeah, it's following and leading at its best, and it doesn't matter who leads and who follows. And sometimes you just realize that while you think you're leading, that you're actually following. So, I think that's a beautiful way to learn collaboration without telling people this is collaboration. It's just doing and just having fun. And for me, the ukulele is also, let's say, the instrument with a smile. You just put it out, and people say, okay. And on the other hand, it's also a very serious instrument. So you can play, a lot of decent stuff with it. And I think that's why it's so easy to pick up, and why it's so easy to also use in a business environment to let people really experience something without that they have the idea that they're making a fool out of them, which is also a very important thing. So that when you have people in your workshop, that there's no blaming, no shaming, no laughing, but laughing together, but not laughing about someone, and that everybody's the same. And I love this very much. Talking about ukulele, is it? It's an Hawaiian instrument, but it came from Portugal, right? From the Kaiaulu. I forgot the name.
Yeah, I mean, I might not have the pronunciation correctly, but it's actually a hybrid of two instruments, the cavaquinho and the rajau, I believe it's pronounced, or rajau. I'm not familiar with the Portuguese pronunciation. But it was actually, invented in Hawaii in the sense that when Portuguese immigrants were brought here in 1879, these were two traditional folk instruments that traveled with the Portuguese immigrants from the Madeira Islands, is where the first Portuguese immigrants were brought here to work in the sugar plantations here in the islands. And they brought their instruments with them. And actually some of the Portuguese, the Madeirans that were brought here were actually well known for their woodworking. The Madeiran people are famous woodworkers. And so they had skill in, instrument making and cabinet making. And they basically, as some of this is oral history and some of it is documented. And, some people might have different details to this story, but the general accepted narrative is that using native woods, they created an instrument that use this unique tuning, because the unique part about the ukulele is the re-entrant tuning, right? Mm. My dog has fleas, da 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 da. That da da, that high string on top, also known as re-entrant tuning, is a very distinct tuning that's not used in most stringed instruments. Have a linear tuning, right? Where a guitar, if you think of a guitar, it has the lowest string at the top and it gets progressively higher, right? Or a bass guitar, or even violins and cellos and whatnot. So it took that re-entrant tuning from, I don't remember if it was the cavaquinho or the rajau that has that, but then it used the intervals of a fourth that one of the other instruments had, right? So you have a G and a C and an E and an A. So you have fourths. So it's kind of a combination of a re-entrant tuning in fourths, where the original Portuguese instrument had the re-entrant tuning, but it was tuned in fifths, like a violin or a mandolin, right? Yeah. So those two elements together is what created this new instrument. And that was through the 1880s, 1890s. And in Honolulu, there's you can look back and there are various business registries of these immigrants creating instrument companies in Honolulu in the the 1880s and 1890s. And even you can see their inventory of ukulele orders, and that's kind of the birth of the ukulele industry and the ukulele culture here in Hawaii, and it was rather quickly integrated into the Hawaiian string bands of the time. There was string bands that were very popular in Hawaii at the end of the 19th century that were typically made of, parlor guitars from America, mandolins, even sometimes banjos and fiddles, and the
Banjo also
ukulele.
has the highest string on top. Right?
Correct. Exactly. Correct. And then so these were the kind of the first string bands here in Hawaii.
And the sound is so nice because when you play it, you always hear the high sound on top, so literally on top. So you just because you have your ukulele more or less at hand, maybe can you, if you want, can you give us a little bit more of the ukulele sound?
Sure. I can. I'll play something a little more rhythmic. That's maybe a little bit more typical of kind of the typical ukulele style.
Beautiful, nice. What kind of strings are there?
These are actually
very high.
it's a fluorocarbon string.
Okay.
That it has a very, very bright kind of snappy sound.
What instrument is it? Who's the maker? Or maybe also question what are the most famous or what would be the best ukulele? And this was a tenor ukulele, so it's not the super small. This is a decent instrument.
The people listening won't be able to see what I'm holding, but this is what's called the tenor size of the ukulele, because there's three main sizes of the standard tuned ukulele. The smallest and most typical size is called standard size, or also known as soprano ukulele. And that's like the original size. That's the typical ukulele you see that's kind of smaller size. Then there's a concert size, which is a little bigger, a little longer scale on the neck. And then what I'm playing, which is a tenor size ukulele, which is smaller than a guitar, definitely. But they're all tuned with that same G, C, E, A, Hawaiian tuning with the high G. This ukulele was built by a company called G String Ukulele, named after the top string is G. But definitely the most well-known of the ukulele makers is the Kamaka family. And Samuel Kamaka Sr. Was one of the original ukulele makers in the early 20th century who was building them after that first wave of Portuguese immigrants came here. And the Kamaka family, which still builds ukuleles to this day, and still many consider the kind of the Martin guitar, if you will, of ukulele making. And that's like I said, still to this day, that's probably like the most well-known ukulele. And that the key thing about the Hawaiian ukulele is that it's made using koa wood. And that's what this tenor ukulele, and koa wood really, it is related to mahogany, the North American mahogany, but it's much brighter than mahogany is. Actually, mahogany is known for its kind of warm tones, a little bit a mid-range bright tone, but when you compare it to koa, it's going to be much warmer. Where koa is very bright, it's very loud, which is key if you're playing an ukulele, which is a smaller size instrument, has a smaller box. You need something that's loud, and that is also has that bright kind of snappy sound, which I can demonstrate real quick because I was playing a little bit more rhythmically, but the ukulele is also commonly played with more of a finger style.
Mm.
So you need something that has a little bit more attack and more projection and actually a shorter sustain that gives it kind of a distinct sound. So I'll just try and make something up here. I haven't warmed up or anything, so I might fumble my way through a couple things. But I'll just pick a couple things to just give you a sense of that. Yeah,
Nice, very nice.
so
Sounds
that
good.
has that koa when it's finger picked and you're kind of bouncing around, that is a little bit part of why that coal wood is so desired, and also why that high G string on top,
Yeah.
because when you're picking with your thumb and your fingers, it makes it real snappy, and that's also where the legend of the name ukulele comes from, which would literally translate as jumping flea.
Uh,
Uku is like a flea, and lele means to jump. And so it's kind of a legend now, but the legend is that when the fingers are moving across the fretboard and you're picking and moving and the fingers are bouncing, it's like little fleas jumping across the strings. So that's
nice,
one kind of story
nice
about where the
picture.
name,
Nice picture.
yeah, the
Okay,
ukulele comes from.
Dagan, thank you so much. There's a lot we talked. We talked about Hawaii, about the country. We talked about the school, about the instrument that brought us together in some way. And is there anything that we didn't touch that you would like to share?
Well, just one last thing, because I think what really makes the ukulele special, and you mentioned it, it's that there's a joy, there's a happiness, there is that instant kind of smile that the ukulele brings. But and not but, and the beautiful thing about the ukulele is it's so expressive, and it actually has a complexity within this very simple design that just always amazes me and always brings me back to the ukulele, and I'll always find new things in there. And there's so many ukulele players that are just amazing on this instrument, from Eddie Kamai to Jesse Kalima, Troy Fernandez, Peter Moon. I could go on and on. There's a lot of ukulele players that are very well known here in Hawaii that maybe aren't known throughout the world. Um, so the ukulele, it always has this two sides to it. It's this happy, fun instrument that's very approachable, yet there are musicians who have dedicated their lives to playing this instrument and developing technique that's very complex and very, very difficult to master. I've spent my whole life playing the ukulele, and I'm not even close. I still consider myself a beginner on the instrument. So I just wanted to mention that as well, to kind of add on to the story of this instrument, that it has that component to it as well.
Thank you very much, Dagan. And you mentioned some names. I would like to ask you to send it, and then I can put them in the show notes, just also to spread the word. And it's also good to share that you are also a musician that has titles on Spotify. So we will put this all in the show notes. But if people would like to connect with you, what would be the best thing?
Well, thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, I'm on, most social media channels. Dagan Music on Instagram. My full name, Dagan Bernstein, on Twitter. And I love talking about music. I love talking about education, and how those two things interact with each other. You can also go to my website, daganmusic.com, as well.
Thank you very much, Dagan. So we will put everything in the show notes so that people can connect with you or reconnect if they have listened. And thank you very much. And yeah, it was a pleasure to talk to you again, and now virtual. But yeah, who knows? In some more time, we will speak again. Thank you very much, Dagan.
Thank you, Christoph. It was a pleasure. Hope to do it again.
Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate this because listening is one of the top leadership skills, and I feel honored about this. It is my mission to find, create, and share inspirations for meaningful collaboration based on music analogies. If you want to support this, please subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, or write a review on iTunes or Spotify. And more inspirations can be found on musicthinking.com. We have a blog, and you can download the Music Thinking Framework. And finally, I would love to hear your feedback. And if you need help with a business challenge, please reach out to me via email podcast@musicthinking.com.